September the 3rd, 2020 school board meeting. First up will be the Pledge of Allegiance, led by board member and current chair, Mr. Jim Estes. All right, please join me in a moment of silence. All right, first item up tonight will be open the floor up to nominations for the school board chairman for the 2020-2021 school year.
Mr. Spurlock, would it be possible for Mr. Reed to walk us through this process as some of us are new?
Yes. Mr. Reed?
I'm sorry, I did not hear your question.
Walk her through the process.
So with respect to electing chairman then, we'll be taking nominations from the floor. So if there are nominations for chairman, anybody who wishes to make a nomination can make a nomination. It does not have to be seconded. We will continue to take nominations until there are no more nominations, and then we'll take a vote on the nominations that are made for chairman at that point.
Thank you.
It does not have to be seconded.
No.
Mr. Spurlock, I'd like to nominate Coy Young for chairman.
We have a nomination for Young for chairman. Do we have any other nominations? All right, if there's no more nominations, all in favor for Mr. Coy Young as being chairman for the 2020-2021 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, Mr. Young.
Thank you, fellow board members. I appreciate that you have the confidence in me to lead this school board, and I will do my due diligence to make sure that we do the best job we can for the students and the parents of Rutherford County Schools. That being said, next item on the agenda, nominations for vice chairman. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Tiffany Johnson.
Yeah. Any other nominations? Let's have a vote. All in favor for Ms. Johnson, say yes.
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ms. Johnson, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing no business here, approval of our agenda. Any motions?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, recommended approval. All say yay.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Approval of consent agenda. Signify by saying yay. I'm sorry. That should be asked for a motion. Got a
Motion on the consent agenda?
Yes. We have a second?
Second.
All right. Signify by saying yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Motion approved. Okay, do we have any visitors tonight?
They're on the sheets are right there.
Okay, is Colleen Millicarly here? I'm sorry?
Looks like someone maybe at the door can't get in.
The other door.
Go on to the second one.
She's at the very front door.
Okay, what about Michael Harris? All right. Please come up to the podium, Mr. Harris. If you would, please state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. Michael Harris, 5235 Sledge Road, Christiana, Tennessee. I'm here tonight in reference to the Tan Oak School property. I prepared a statement because I tend to go off track sometimes. First, I'd like to say that Trey Lee assured me several months ago that anything needed for the road widening was going to be done on their side of the road. We have not seen that. It's not the case. It's coming off my side of the road. Second was the construction site has forced my neighbor to move out, not being very fair to him at all. I've been helping him for the last couple of days to move because of the situation that y'all put him in. And I can go into detail if you give me more time. That's up to y'all. He is a disabled veteran. He can hardly walk. Y'all have taken out his driveway or in the process of it. You've locked him out on his gate, the access. This morning it was locked. He couldn't even get out. We had to cut it with bolt cutters. Just lots and lots of different things that have gone on that property pertaining to my neighbor. Third, Mr. Trey Lee was before this board on August 11th, and he said that that TDEC had him shut down because of some wetlands that was discovered on that property. Many of you board members know that that has been noted since August of 2018, that there's wetlands on that property. Y'all knew it. For him to use that as an excuse to get shut down is not right. That's a lie. TDEC informed me yesterday that the reason that he was shut down is because he didn't have an NOC, which is a notice of coverage, which is essentially a permit. So he did not have that. That's why he was shut down. Another thing that was come up is just Friday night we had 3 inches of rain. Within about 20 minutes or so, my river, I live across the street from the property, my river was red as a beet from clay silt runoff from that property. Saturday morning, it was fairly clear, about 9 a.m. About 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon, it was a lot more water in the creek, and it was red again. No explanation for that because it hadn't rained anymore. My wife and I went over to the property on Sunday to do some investigating. We discovered about 600 feet of silt fence that was never put up. And it's on the downhill side right next to the creek. So everything that was running off of that property was going into a creek, which is on the state list of exceptional waterways. It's got endangered species in it. Started Monday morning calling TDEC. Never got a response. Friday, I'm sorry, am I supposed to do anything?
You wrap it up here in the next few seconds, please.
Okay. TDEC finally got back to me after I posted on social media a bunch of pictures with the Red River. TDEC finally got back with me Wednesday. I also talked to Trey Lee on Wednesday, and I talked to the superintendent on the job. Both of them told me many, many lies, and I'm tired of getting lied to about this property. So.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Colleen in here now?
Thank you for waiting.
Please state your name and
Yes.
address.
I'm Colleen Melchiori. I live in McFarland Point, and my children attend Rock Springs Elementary School. I'm a constituent of Tiffany Johnson, who has been an available and compassionate representative for me. I'm going to talk today about distance learning concerns. I have a child who is a heart transplant recipient, so in-person learning doesn't feel like the right move for our family. I've thought so much about what I wanted to say to you this evening, and I sent all of you a really long email outlining all of my concerns, and I was probably a little bit of a jerk in some of it, and I don't mean to be. I just want you to know I'm so frustrated. I feel like distance learning parents were promised interactive and integrated learning that was equivalent to in-class learning, that we were promised this seamless transition between online and in-person classes. We started the year with what felt to me to be subpar technology and no uniformity in execution across schools, or sometimes even in classrooms, and minimal training on how to use this technology for the school personnel, this technology that was expected of them. You have coveted our patience as parents. And I am just so tired of being patient, not just with you, but with this whole thing. You didn't cause this, right? Like, nobody asked for this, and nobody signs up to lead in a global pandemic. It's just taken so much in what seems to be like the worst year ever. And it's easy to get caught up in complaining, and it's easy for me to be a squeaky wheel. And maybe the best thing that I can say to you this evening is to say that I know that there are classrooms and schools that are getting it right. And my child actually happens to get to be a part of one of these wonderful classrooms. I can only imagine the level of independent work that has had to go into making those classes worthwhile. I suggest that we need to ask teachers and administrators to do two jobs, that we should also be compensating them accordingly. I would like to think that since we're a public school system, that we need to serve all of the public, and that means one device per child, not per household. I feel like this practice is furthering the learning gap in ways that make me super, super uncomfortable. But I want you to know that you have parents and staff in this district with a myriad of backgrounds and skill sets willing to help you, and I invite you to call upon us to be a part of the solution here. Our sweet elementary school, Rock Springs, has bent over backwards for my family of distance learners, and I still deal with tears every week, both from my kids and from myself. And that's not anyone's fault, but it is our job to correct the course we're on. My friend and fellow distance learning parent, Leah, is here today, and she'll be sharing some really awesome solutions with you. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next would be Barbara Dillman.
My name is Barbara Dillman, 1932 Sterling Street in Murfreesboro, and I'd like to pray. Father, you're the great and mighty God, maker of heaven and earth. And we thank you for the start of this school year. Thank you for the protection you've brought. Thank you for all that you've given us and all those you've brought together. We come to you tonight to humbly ask for your help and your grace. These men and women of this school board and our director have an insurmountable task before them. They're in uncharted waters, and the direction is not clear. An enormous responsibility rests on their shoulders. Give them your wisdom, your discernment, your knowledge in how to lead this large group of educators, students, and staff. May every decision honor you and be pleasing to you. Bless their work, bless their families, their homes, and all that are associated with them. Father, the task of the principals is a heavy one. So many decisions, so many people coming to them from all directions with needs and questions, many of which they've never faced before. Give them your wisdom, your empathy, your clarity to meet all these demands. Give them effective communications. Bless them with health and strength. Bless their families and their homes. May you lead them in the way they should go. And Father, remember the teachers. Their load is so demanding. Come alongside them in their work and increase the effectiveness of their labor. Give them protection, strength, and multiplied rest. Give them balance in their work and their families. Bless them and all that are associated with them, and may they be amazed at what you will do with their efforts. And Lord, I ask your blessings on the students. Give them a hunger to learn, a willingness to cooperate, and a desire to do their best. Open their minds to understand what's being presented. Help them to see the value of their work and remove any obstacles from their learning. Protect their minds, protect their bodies and their hearts. Father, give us unity in our schools and in our county. When we're tempted to complain, help us pray for those making these hard decisions. When we find ourselves judging in retrospect, help us pray and find ways to encourage. When we are dissatisfied, when our expectations and perceived needs are not being met, help us to pray and seek ways to help meet the needs. Enable us to work together. May there be no more COVID cases in any school or office, and may students return to classrooms to learn and teachers to instruct in community. We look to you, Almighty God, to do these things. We cannot do them in and of ourselves, but we can do all things through you who give us strength. I ask these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Thank you, Ms. Dillman. Okay, next, Scott Gosmeyer.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Spurlock, new board members, congratulations, and old board members, glad to have you back. My name is Scott Cosmore. I live at 12741 Manchester Pike. I'm a father of 5, and every one of my children have gone to a Rutherford County school. I believe that our county schools are some of the best in the country. The teachers are awesome, but I also believe that sometimes we get off the path, and I just want to make sure we stay on the right path. So I have a few comments real quick. I'll keep them very brief. I do believe that we get out of school what we put into school, and I've told my children that they're solely responsible for their decisions and that their efforts, obedience, and diligence will be directly related to their grade, success, and future direction of our community, state, and country. Specifically in Riverdale High School, I have to commend Miss Tamara Blair. She has been tremendous when it came to communication. Obviously, it's been a bumpy start to distance learning, and she's been wonderful. Mr. Armand, I don't know if you know Mr. Armand, but my sons and daughters have had him, and he is a tremendous asset that you have. And there's many other teachers too. I just want to recognize 2 of them. On to a couple other items. Since our community has now been represented kind of interestingly in the national news, I just need to understand what process we went through, whether it be board approval or how it got presented to send the student confidentiality letter to Christiana Middle School and or I think Central or some other ones. I tried to find that letter on the internet. I could not find the exact letter, so I don't know the exact verbiage of the letter. But as parents, and as an active parent, I want to know exactly what's going on with my child all the time, whether it be math class, English class, contemporary issues, whatever. And so I need to understand better what transpired. I don't know if any of the parents are concerned about that, but I am. When our county is mentioned in national news, I want to understand why that happened. The only thing that I can assume, and once again, I don't like to make assumptions, but as a parent and being realistic, it's something like, is there something that you don't want us parents to see? And I hope that's not the case. So I never assume the worst, I just hope for the best. I also would like, in the 15 years my children have been a part of, well, more than that, probably 20 years my children have been part of Rutherford County Schools, I've had many instances where teachers have been influenced, have tried to influence children in a certain political leaning. I just don't, no teacher or anyone in authority should influence a student on what to think, but they should influence them on how to think, right? And if a teacher or anybody in authority, if those students know the political leanings of that teacher or that authority person, then they've done something wrong, right? I'm almost done here, guys. I have more, but I'll stop. I just think, last thing, I have one senior athlete at Riverdale, and they are having to wear masks when they're working out. Now, this child works out at 7 o'clock in the morning to 8:15, and then has to go back for 4 hours of practice in the afternoon. Literally, they are lifting 200, 300, 400 pounds above their head with a mask on, and they are going to pass out. And I understand Governor Lee has not put a mandate across the state, but I understand TSSAA has done something. Are we willing to risk a child getting hurt, these child that have a minuscule level of risk with COVID, to put a mask on when they could drop a barbell with 250 pounds right on them? So that's one thing that's very, very important to me. I don't understand that. I had more, but I will curtail it. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
If we could answer that last question. Ms. Page, would you?
Absolutely.
Please?
I will check on that. Our guidance from the TSSAA is that our weightlifters are not to be masked and that our spotters are only masked. So I'll follow up with Riverdale and make sure that's addressed. Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, next visitor, Patty McIntyre. Please state your name and address.
Patty McIntyre, 107 Gwynn Street in Smyrna. I am here on behalf of my grandson with this virtual school. It has got him to the point where it has got me like this. It's annoying. It's hard for him. He has to go on a program on the DYE website. Then he goes on Clever. Then he has to go on Kid'em. Then he has to go click on each individual class to get his list of homework, which they put on there by the week. He has 3 different Zoom classes that he has to go on at different times, and none of his schedules with the 3 teachers that he has line up. So he's constantly late for classes, constantly late for his homework. This has got to be better. These kids are frustrated. He is 9 years old. He is an AB student with ADHD, unmedicated, and he is going to go to a DF because of the way this is being done. You guys got to do better than this for these kids. You should have put school off for a month and took July and August to set these up for these kids. You got teachers out there, and bless their hearts, they're doing their best. But y'all were not prepared for this. And the teachers and the students are the ones paying for it. My grandson is frustrated to the max. When he gets frustrated, this is what happens to me. This is hard. I get it that nobody asked for this, but this is totally not right for these kids. Y'all got to do better.
Can we get the name of the school, ma'am?
It's David Urey, and they are doing their very best to help us. And Miss Robinson, bless her heart, she's getting ready to move out of state. And I text her at least 8, 9, 10 times a day, and she is back on me with an answer. But he's having to go to his emails for part of his work, and the other part of his work is in Kid'em. Some of the teachers in Zoom, the teachers are like, film this and turn it in on there. And there's even a little box on there where they can do it. But when you try to put that video or that picture in that Zoom box on that assignment, you can't do it. The school has got the videos. I understand why. But if you're going to give these teachers this and tell them this is what they've got to do, make it so they can use it. And all this homework jumping around, why can kids not go to one site and get their homework for everything? Why do they have to bounce to 6 different sites for their homework? Some of the teachers can't even get on the Kid'em, so they have to go in through the David Urey page for the counselors, the guidance. They can't get on Kid'em. I'm almost finished. They have to go in through the DYE page to the can't remember what it's called, academics, and then go to Counselor's Corner to get his assignments for that. But then there's nowhere on the other Kid'em page to say that he did the assignment. I just don't understand. This has got to be better for these kids. My grandson deserves better than this, and so do all these kids in Rutherford County. I love David Urey, and my grandson moved here to live with me to go to this school because I love David Urey that much. And the teachers there are amazing. But the teachers and the kids both do not deserve the runaround that they are having to play to get this going. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre.
Dr. Sullivan, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, could you speak on that, please?
Yes, sir. So when we think about, especially with kids having to access multiple areas, the first thing that they do have to do is they have to log into Clever. That accesses them to what classes they're assigned to. We would love to limit the number of clicks that they would have to make, but unfortunately a kid has to be able to log into what their true schedule is. I will work with David Urey and see truly what's going on. That's the first I've heard from that one. And we have a staff dedicated, an elementary team. They're going to each school. Okay, and I will work with them, no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Our next visitor, Cameron Harris.
Hello, I'm Cameron Harris. I live at 119 Reelfoot Court, Murfreesboro, and I would like to yield my time to Michael Harris.
With our rules, we have 3 minutes per speaker, so we don't have a provision for someone to yield time to someone else under our rules.
Parliamentary procedures.
So, yeah, so there's no provision for someone to yield time to someone else under our rules.
Because you don't want me exposing anything else that y'all are doing.
All right, let's move on to the next agenda item. Recognition, number 8.
All right, number 8, Palmer Wholesale, a local company and provider of product to the school system for decades, has generously donated 500 cases of disposable trays to the school system. The value of these trays is $17,855. Rutherford County Schools would like to thank Palmer Wholesale for their generous donation. Anyone here from Palmer Foods?
Is it anyone here from Palmer Foods? Okay.
All right. All right, next, Rutherford County Schools would like to recognize Jeff Jordan, a member of the Rutherford County Board of Education from September 2014 to August of 2020, and Terry Hodge, a member of Rutherford County Board of Education from September 2004 to August of 2020. For your unselfish devotion and service to students, teachers, and citizens of Rutherford County, we'd like to thank you, and we have a plaque to give out.
Oh, please come on up. I'd like to thank these gentlemen. They both were past chairs and really helped build this school board and put us on a good firm foundation. So thank you guys for everything you did for us.
Absolutely.
All right, number 9.
All right, Dr. Anthony is going to come up. She's going to give us some data and go over some data about the retention for the last 3 years and specifically for this year. Dr. Anthony, you did pass out of?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I have a handout that's on your desk, and it gives information for the past 3 years about our increase in our retention rate. When I started this job 3 years ago, I'm starting my 4th year now, I'm very excited. We began tracking the retention rate and then the reasons why employees may transfer or leave or retire. So I thought this might give you a complete snapshot of my last 3 years, and then how that we've been making growth and improvement in each of these areas. So you can see the charts to the left are the reasons why. You'll notice that this past year, we had an up in retirement, and then a down in the working environment, and then also an up in the family circumstances as an option. So I'll give you a second to kind of look at that chart. And then on the right-hand side is a breakdown that includes both the retirees, the resignations, the non-renews, and any contracts that have ended. So this past year, for the 2019-20, our retention rate is at 91%, which is really excellent. And we looked at other districts, and we are that we compete all the time against, and they're in the top 10, and we are at the top on our retention rate. So we're really excited about that news. I also listed some information about signing bonuses. I thought that might be helpful, and also some information about our job embedded program. Does anybody have any questions on these items? Yes, yes. So we've been increasing our rate about 0.5% each year, which is really great. And then I did want to make sure that you saw that all of your efforts to add the additional signing bonus for our student teachers has really paid off. So we were able to give out 56 additional signing bonuses this year for that. Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Any questions? Good. Okay.
Actually, I do. A real quick question. How many, because I know, the whole virus thing and all the chaos and everything that has ensued because of it, how many open, I assume we have open positions for teachers that we're still trying to fill right now. Can you kind of give us some numbers on
Yes, we typically have anywhere we have some interim positions and then some core teaching and then some growth positions that have just been approved. We've had 3 additional that Dr. Sullivan's been able to approve. We do have about a couple of interim positions and then about a dozen that we are still trying to fill in the hard-to-fill areas, such as math and science.
We're still offering signing bonuses for those areas that are so...
That's correct.
Thank you. All right, number 10, Director.
All right, next, Ms. Winters would come up and kind of go through the process of how we do the protocol with the COVID. I will tell you it's changed a few times since the beginning, and it will probably continue to change. We do get our marching orders from the State Department of Health through the local, but whatever the State Department of Health says, we must do. So if you want to carry us through your PowerPoint.
And that is new from the last few weeks. We have been having parents do that at home, but now we're doing it at school first period. And these are the screening questions, and yeah, the normal ones that we did. The signs and symptoms of COVID, just to be a little clearer about them, there are some high-risk symptoms. That's fever, chills, a cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, new loss of taste or smell. Those symptoms would indicate a high likelihood of a positive COVID case. The lesser likely symptoms include so many other things: fatigue, muscle or body aches, headaches, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea.
Oh dear, I've not been on. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Go. So when someone gets sick at school or at work, we start looking at what are their complaints. If they have one symptom from that COVID list, they're going to go home. But if that symptom gets better over the course of the day, the evening, no additional symptoms develop, then they can return the following day.
If there are 2 or more symptoms that present at school or at work, and they're on the COVID list, then they're sent home, and then they need to meet one of 4 criteria to return to school. And these criteria do come from these guidelines from the Department of Health. The first of the 4 criteria are they could go to their doctor and have a written documentation from their provider that says that their condition is not due to COVID. I'm going to take this off because of another explanation that's identified. It is important to note, though, that diagnoses of respiratory and viral conditions such as upper respiratory tract infections, pneumonia, pharyngitis without a positive strep test, pneumonia, seasonal allergies, allergic rhinitis, viral illnesses, all of those don't exclude a diagnosis of COVID, so they cannot be considered as an adequate reason to return to school. A different one of the criteria needs to be met. So the second one is they could go get a test, and if it's negative while they're sick, and if their fever has resolved, if they had fever without any fever-reducing medications, and if they've improved in their symptoms in the last 24 hours, they can return to school. The third way that they could return to school is they could just complete a 10-day isolation period. And as long as they're fever-free without fever-reducing medications and their symptoms have been improving for 24 hours, they can return. And then the final one is if they get tested and they test positive, and then they complete a 10-day isolation period, their fever, if they had any to start with, is resolved without fever-reducing medications, and all their symptoms have improved for at least 24 hours, then they're ready to return. Now we talk about contacts. When a positive case is reported to the school, the people that that person has been in touch with at school need to be identified and sent home. So the administrators at the school will start an investigation, and it usually starts when the person gets sick to start with. They start looking at who they were around for the period of time that they were at school. They take note, and then if the case ends up being a positive case, then they go ahead and send these kids home, and employees. So when was the last time the student was at school? Who was within 6 feet of him for 10 minutes or longer with or without a mask? Was he having symptoms? Because it depends on whether they were having symptoms or not when we start contact tracing. If they were having symptoms, we start collecting contacts for 48 hours prior to onset of symptoms. Not having symptoms, we start collecting contacts from the date of his test. So we send these contacts home, and the health department rules say that these people are to self-quarantine for 14 days from their last contact with that individual unless otherwise directed. Like I just said, an individual who's been identified as a close contact of a confirmed case of COVID-19 must quarantine for a minimum of 14 days. Then, as long as they are asymptomatic themselves, they can return to school or work. Something that they have added recently is some evidence of, my mind just went blank, immunity, sorry. So if a contact has had a positive test in the last 90 days, they are considered to have some immunity and are not required to self-quarantine at that time. But it only lasts 90 days. Now, household contacts, this is something that has been revised recently, and it's different, and it's a little complicated. So a household contact is someone who shares living spaces with a positive case. That includes their bedroom, bathroom, living room, kitchen, etc. And a household contact, because they're in continuous exposure to that virus, they have to quarantine for their 14 days after the case in their house has completed their 10-day course. So a total of 24 days of quarantine for household contact. Now, if that household contact develops symptoms during quarantine, things sort of reset and they're treated like a case, and we would relook at all the dates, and they may get tested.
And that is sort of it in a nutshell. What questions do y'all have for me?
Give them a point of reference.
Sure.
Since we started school on August the 17th, we've actually had, of approximately 27,000 kids that are in person, only 36 actually tested positive.
I think that's right, yes, sir.
Whereas 559 who were around someone who tested positive had to quarantine. So one of the things that I said in the very beginning, I'm not really concerned about what is in the building, it's what's coming into the building. So I think I'm trying to be very complimentary of our teachers and our administrators and our students for maintaining as best as possible that social distancing.
There are a lot of cases that I report to the health department where the report from the school nurses, this case is positive, and we've been able to track, and there are no identifiable close contacts because they were able to maintain that distance, or they're just 2 or 3 just because they had to be in close proximity for a certain period of time.
And I will say the symptoms, because of the incubation period, it is problematic. But we have worked through the process, and I know as the State Department of Health, they've even said, no, we can't take allergies.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So believe me, we want our kids in school, but I say when you got 36 out of 27,000, 27,000 kids, and we've only had 36, I say amen to those teachers, students, and administrators for doing the job.
Yes, sir. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes. Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
All right, moving on to number 11.
Number 11, the Title IX McKinney-Vento grant tab, found on tab 2. Rutherford County Schools is seeking approval from the Board of Education from the McKinney-Vento grant in the amount of $219,106.95 for the 2020-2021 school year as presented in the budget overview. We also have a new person here that's over this. Would you come up, Ms. Johnson, and let them know who you are and what your job entails?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm your new Atlas Liaison for Rutherford County Schools. This is going into my 3rd month, and I'm very happy to be here. We service our most needy families and students. We take care of all of our students. They may be living in a hotel, a motel, a campsite. They may be doubled up with another family. Some are even living in cars and going to other people's homes. And at this time, it's such a complicated time for them to be living so hard. We provide many things for them with the Atlas program, transportation to their school of origin so they can have some consistency in their life, so they can have those teachers they know, their friends they know. We provide school supplies, weekend food bags, snacks, and we also free lunch and breakfast. Of course, that changed this week, which is wonderful for everyone. But those are some of the things that the Atlas program provides, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. We also have an Atlas contact in every school. Does anyone have any questions?
Ms. Johnson. We're excited to have you on board.
Thank you.
All right, motion to approve the McKinney-Vento grant in the amount of $219,106.95 for the 2020-2021 school year.
Do I have a motion? Who was that? Ms. Moore, okay. Second?
Second.
Ms. Bratton? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. All right, moving on to number 12.
All right, number 12 is our 2020-2021 Safe Schools Grant budget. I'd like to ask Mr. Grimm to come up and talk a little bit about that. That's a total of $907,169.20.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the new board members.
This year's Safe Schools budget, we were very blessed by the state of Tennessee to give us $902,900, which is up almost $50,000 from last year. So we're looking good with that. As you see here, it's broken down. Salaries, we're paying for my salary now since I'm a fully dedicated safety employee. We did that last year as well. And we've added in a percentage of Miss DeVola Mormon, who you all met last time. She is our lead district psychologist. We're going to be splitting that with SPED. I'm not going to go over the incidental items here. It's not. If y'all have a question on them, let me know. 3D image mapping for you two new board members. We are 3D image mapping our schools slowly but surely. It's not it's a laborious process, and it also takes a fair amount of time. We work with a company called True North, and they work with the county. We have some very good tactical information that's done with this, which I can't divulge tonight. So if you have any questions about that, you all new people, you'll be glad to answer in person. We've another $50,000 for that, which will be several more schools this year. We're going to the PD Center in Smyrna does not have an AED, and the nice lady that runs that place, Miss Marcy Lehman, came to me and said, "Is there anything we can do for that?" And I said, "Absolutely, we'll put that in there." Training and development. I'm hoping again this year that I can make a conference. The one I was in this year got canceled, so this is kind of a repeat of this same sort of thing. The main item on our budget is the Avigilon camera systems and DVRs, and that will be for the remaining schools that we did not get to last year. So this will complete Rutherford County for having upgraded DVRs in all our schools. We'll also, wherever possible, upgrade our cameras to facial tracking cameras as well. One item, this next item is a significant item for us as a county. The county is going to Apex tracking radios, or rather trunking radios. These radios will allow us to directly interface with law enforcement, with fire, with other schools, with administration, with transportation, so we can all come together if we have an incident at a school that we need to handle, or we have disaster in the community that we need to handle. These are awesome radios. Our transportation department is already using them on the buses, and we'll be going to handheld and base unit radios in the school as well. The county in the schools allowed us one base unit and one handheld radio, and I'm putting in the budget here for additional 5 radios per school to cover the other crisis team members. So that each crisis team member, for example, if we had to move children because a storm hit a school and we had to move it to a church or something, we could talk back and forth no matter how far away we were. And they're clear as a bell from one end of this county to the other. It's awesome. There are some additional radios in there for replacing some old, outdated school radios and repeaters as well. We have several that are non-digital compliant. As you know, the USA software, that's our threat assessment package we discussed and you all approved it at the last meeting. We're looking at, this is an item we actually carried over from last year. We were unable to complete an entrance control vestibule for Smyrna Primary School. So we'll be completing that this year. That's a high priority for us. We just fell a little bit short on our budget last year. And then finally, we'll be putting in control security doors out here in the lobby on either side of the hallways to further secure central office. So the total budget this year, $907,169.20, is a carryover of $4269.20 from last year that we didn't spend. Most of this was relative to the conferences and so forth that got canceled because of COVID. So the 902.9 plus the 4269.20 gives us 907,169.20.
All right, motion to approve the 2020-2021 Safe Schools budget, which includes a current grant of $902,900 plus the carryover from the previous fiscal year of 2019-2020 in the amount of $4,269.20 for a grand total of $907,169.20.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Bratton?
Second.
Second, Mr. Justice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
Thank y'all.
Number 13.
All right, memorandum of understanding, agreement with STARS, students taken to right stand, found on tab 3. Recommend motion to approve the MOU between STARS of Nashville and the Rutherford County Board of Education. STARS agrees to provide student assistance services addressing behavioral health issues and other social and emotional barriers to success at the following sites: Laverne High School, Oakland High School, Oakland Middle School, and Riverdale High School.
Okay. Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Mr. Estes, need a second?
Second.
Second. Ms. Maxwell? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 14,
All
Director.
right, number 14, I'm very excited about curriculum instruction found on tab 4, for the mobile hotspots for Rutherford County schools families. The Tennessee Department of Education has recently offered connectivity grant for qualifying LEAs to extend the internet connectivity to Tennessee students. The department will award LEAs the equivalent of $150 per household. This grant application is due on October the 1st of 2020 and will cover purchase orders between March the 1st to October the 1st, 2020. All of these funds used through the grant must be liquidated by December the 31st of 2020. Rutherford County Schools has received a quote from Verizon to support distance learning in K-12 public schools for 300 mobile hotspots and 6 months of service plans for a total of $80,979. These mobile hotspots are $149.99 and will be paid through the connectivity grant. The 6-month service plan for these 300 mobile hotspots will be paid by the Rutherford County Schools, not exceeding a total of $35,982. Now wait, it gets better than that. Mr. Beaudry, how can we recoup that $35,982?
That'll go into the over $1 million reimbursement claim that I'll have in front of the board, and hopefully the beginning of October, the first meeting in October, so we can submit that. So we should be getting some of those proceeds back.
Doesn't get much better than that, Doug. Thank you. Motion to approve the $44,997 for the 300 mobile hotspots to be paid through approved connectivity grant in the amount of $35,982 to be paid by the Rutherford County schools for 6 months of service plans for these 300 mobile hotspots.
Do we have a motion?
I have a question. Mr. Spurlock, how will we divvy these out?
It would go for those that are the most neediest. We've already put hotspots in I think just about every high school parking lot. I actually got a call from someone the other day about wanting to know where the hotspots were. I told her where the hotspots were, and she didn't like that because she said there were no air conditioner in the car. So we did work with her to use one of the old gyms at Eagleville for a kid to come in and get it.
Also, one of the, I believe I told Dr. Sullivan this, we had a discussion about earlier this week. Montgomery County puts hotspots on their buses. So they're out actually in the neighborhoods.
Right.
So that might be something that we could look into.
Sure.
So would it be free and reduced would actually get these first?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do we have a way of tracking how much of these are used during the
Absolutely.
6 months?
Oh, we will.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion.
To approve. Second.
Moore, Ms. Maxwell. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right, the next one is the Title II funds for supplementary elementary ELA specialists. Rutherford County Schools currently funds one elementary ELA specialist position that works with all elementary schools. We currently fund one additional elementary ELA specialist through Title II funds, and these two positions share 25 elementary schools for the 2020-2021 school year. Rutherford County Schools would like to use Title II funds to add one additional elementary ELA specialist. This position would provide training and support with KIDM and our new LA adoption expeditionary learning for all of our elementary schools. Motion to approve Title II funds to pay for one additional elementary ELA specialist position for the 2020-2021 school year, pending approval of the fiscal year 2021 revision from the Tennessee State Department of Ed.
All right, any questions? Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Ms. Johnson, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Estes, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Chairman, that was Ms. Bratton, I believe.
Oh, Ms. Bratton, I'm sorry. I'll get used to your voices soon, I hope. Number 15.
All right, this is the ESL extended contract that's found on tab 5. The ESL department will be conducting an after-school extended day program for Smyrna High School, funded completely by Title III funds. In the event that school closure, the class will be conducted through distance learning. The Title III funds will provide 2 teacher extended contracts and 1 bilingual educational assistant extended contract. The schedule for the extended school day will run for both semesters, Monday through Wednesday, from 3:45 to 6:15. Each extended contract is for approximately $2,400. Motion to approve the Rutherford County Schools Title III funded extended contract for 2 teachers and a bilingual educational assistant for the extended day program.
Any questions?
I've got a comment, if it's okay. Our ESL department is phenomenal. I can't tell you, I've ran into people who, I'm woefully inadequate in Spanish, and I took 4 years of it in high school. But I have had people ask questions. I've picked up the phone and called them, and they have literally taken care of that parent right then and there. Or if they didn't, you know, we left a voicemail and they got back with them the next day. I've literally had parents call me back and tell me how happy they are with our ESL department. And I know COVID kind of wrecked their party that they had, the open house and everything, so I'm hoping that we'll get that back on the schedule and we can get back over there.
Great. All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Ms. Maxwell, second?
That was actually Tammy.
Mr.
Okay.
Estes.
You second? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 16, Director.
We're tabling that.
Okay.
September 16th meeting, we get more information together. All right, number 17, found on tab 7. The facility use fee schedule addition. The current fee schedule for the facility use does not list baseball and softball fields with the specific rental fee. Rather, it has been billed as outdoor space at $100 per hour. After discussion with the Assistant Superintendent of Engineering and Construction, $18 an hour with a maximum of $209 per day would be a reasonable amount. This is identical fee to the rental of the gymnasium to youth athletic leagues. Mr. Lee, would you want to speak on that?
Yes, sir. There was a lot of question of that, and Sarah and I worked together on this one, and basically we felt like the athletic baseball fields was similar to a gym, and $100 an hour was a little bit excessive, and it was precluding some of our local folks from being able to use it. So we felt like this was more in line and more equitable for all involved.
Okay. Motion to approve a fee of $18 an hour with a maximum of $290 per day for baseball, softball fields to be added to the facility fee schedule.
Do you have any questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Sharp, second.
Second.
Ms. Maxwell? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Policy adoption, that'd be.
Yeah, DC's second reading, is this right in this page? All right, policy adoption. The policy changes below are recommended for adoption by the policy committee. This is the second reading. Policy 1.400, school board meetings, amended to prohibit board members and staff participating in board meetings from utilizing cell phones while the meeting is in progress to avoid conflicts with the sunshine laws. B, policy 4.700, testing programs, amended to update test names and clarify which final grades are being referenced. C, policy 6.203, school admissions, amended to require all families to complete the student residency questionnaire prior to being provided with an affidavit of residency or being denied enrollment to ensure compliance with board policy 6.502. This change is recommended by the Department of Education. D, policy 6.304, student discrimination, harassment, bullying, cyberbullying, and intimidation. It's rewritten to clarify the process and the definitions in light of Title IX rule changes. E, policy 6.319, alternative education, amended to reflect changes made to law and Public Acts 2020, Chapter 603 of the State Board of Education rule. F, policy 6.503, homeless students, amended to require all families to complete a student residency questionnaire prior to being provided with an affidavit of residency or being denied enrollment to ensure compliance with board policy 6.502. This change is recommended by the Department of Ed. G, policy 3.204, threat assessment team. This policy enshrines the requirements of Public Chapter 394. This allows the creation of a district-level threat assessment team charged with overseeing threats and establishing procedures for management of threats across the district. And H, policy 4.205, enrollment in college-level courses. This policy acknowledges broadly the acceptance of the college-level course as possible grounds for high school credit. This is TSBA model policy. Recommend motion to approve all of these policy changes by the policy committee on the second and final reading.
All right, any questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Bratton, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Johnson? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Financial matters.
All right, number one on 18.1, approved school activity fund auditor contract. Recently, the purchasing department solicited proposals for contract school activity fund audit. The Budget and Finance Office reviewed and submitted proposals, and we are recommending the board to continue engage the current contracted audit firm, Matlock Clements CPAs, for an annual financial and compliance audit for the school activity funds for the fiscal year 2020-2021 for an annual fee of $62,908. This contract has been an option to renew for another 4 additional fiscal years at the board's discretion. Motion to approve presented contract to retain Matlock Clements CPAs as the school activity fund contract auditors for the fiscal year 2020-2021.
Do we have any questions? All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Estes, second.
Second.
Ms. Bratton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right, the next is budget amendment for additional expenditures for the federally mandated Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervention Services Program. This amendment budgets for additional funding as approved in the CCEIS programs plan with the State Department of Education to continue to address disproportionality and discipline issues identified in a prior year. Funding for these current expenditures are from 100% federal IDEA grant funds that are being transferred from the School Federal Projects Fund. Motion to approve the budget amendment for the additional CCEIS program funding as approved by the State Department of Education as presented.
All right, any questions? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Ms. Johnson, second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brad? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 3.
All right, number 3 is, Mr. Lee and I looked at our capital project fund, planned projects for the 2020-21 school year. We had planned on doing a backup server down in the Smyrna PD Center. After looking at this and discussing it with Mr. Lee, I think he and I came to a conclusion that we probably need to use this to do some work in our schools. So what we're requesting is to amend our fiscal year 2020-21 capital project fund planned projects to reallocate the $430,000 in funding from backup server project in order to renovate school restrooms in Smyrna Middle, Oakland High, Riverdale High, Smyrna High, and Laverne High schools. Additionally, a request to reallocate $75,000 in funds from life safety security to rekey the Primus door replacement category to the life safety security camera program and DVR project category. Motion to approve these amendments between the planned capital projects and the capital projects fund to address the presented capital improvement needs.
Any questions? Okay, a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Short. Have a second.
Second.
Ms. Maxwell. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Lee. We appreciate you getting that taken care of. It's been a long time coming. All right, number insurance update.
Just a reminder that the 3 points have been waived for this year, but starting October 1st of 2020 going through September 30th of 2021, we'll start back up with those 3 points. Mr. Chapa from the insurance department, they will be sending us additional emails. I hope you received yours this week. Also talking about the new Salem St. Thomas Ascension site that we can use for midpoint clinics. Did you want to talk about your sheets?
Anthony, I know I've had a couple of parents, people ask as far as locations locally for testing, like if a child gets sent home because of contact tracing or what have you. Do any of our sites that we utilize provide the COVID testing? And if so, are they rapid results, or do we know how that's working?
I have asked that, and with their new partnership with St. Thomas, the 3 midpoint clinics do not offer testing right now at this time.
Is there anything we can do to request it or push them further to?
I believe that had to do with the contract that they had accepted back in the spring for the fall.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, director's update.
Yeah, we got a couple of things. First of all, currently with our enrollment numbers, and that would include approximately 24% of our doing distance learning. At this same time last year, we're currently close to, I think, 799 more students than we did the same time this year, same time last year at this time. So we still are growing, and we continue to grow. That's one thing. And I also request the board, under Tennessee Code Annotated 49-1-301, you have the right to nominate one of our students to be the student representative on our State Board of Education. We do have someone at Eagleville High School, at Jaron Hamby. He's a 12th grade honor student out there. So I respectfully request that the school board would nominate him. We can get, all it would take is a letter from the school board saying they nominate Jaron Hamby to this position. He would hold this position for 1 year if he's so elected by the governor or whoever makes that decision. And I think it's somebody in the governor's office. So if you would entertain that thought and get back with me, or you can just say now if you want to. If you want to do some further investigation or anything like that, that's fine with me.
Any discussion on the matter?
I think it'd be a great idea.
Fine with it, and I'll even carry that a step further. One of the things that I have wanted for us as a board to look at for a while, there are a number of boards that we found through our relationship with the CSEA that have student representatives on their local school boards. Of course, they obviously don't have voting rights, but they have the opportunity to participate. And I've seen so many of our students from participating in the scope conferences and everything that truly are interested in getting involved and engaging, and I think it would be a phenomenal opportunity for some of our students to be able to do that. So it is something that I'd like for us to explore as a board moving forward, adding either one or maybe even a couple of student representatives on the board. So just putting that out there.
Absolutely. All right, if I could continue on, I want to let Dr. Sullivan talk a little bit about, I know we've heard a lot of things about KIDM, and I want to just say this, that we were almost finishing our third week. We bought the program late due to the fact, number one, we're waiting on our CARES Act money. The next thing that was not our first choice, but the only problem with our first choice is I think we were going to get it in February. Is that correct?
October, February, 6 to 9 months.
October, February. So we needed it. KIDM has worked very, I think they've worked with us real well. There has been a growth curve there, but we're improving. I think our teachers and our administrators are learning the ins and outs of it. I go back to this right here, and I'll be perfectly transparent. Back several years ago, we implemented blended learning. However, we did not do it consistently across the school system, because blended learning and distance learning have a lot in common. And had we done that, and hindsight's 2020, we would have been more prepared than we are now. I say all that to say we're rapidly increasing in our ability to meet the needs of our kids. I'd also like to give kudos to our instructional department for offering the parent trainings. They had a training here at our district office, and they had a training down in Smyrna, and it was well attended. And there's been office hours for kids and things of that nature. We're still going to work on it, but I'd like for Dr. Sullivan, because I know we've heard a lot of negative, but if you would speak on where we are.
So if you will, just kind of bear with me, Joanna. We have 2 new board members. I'll make this as quick as possible to try to run down where we have been. First, of course, as a leader of instruction, I think we all can admit we aren't where we want to be. That goes without saying. Our job and our educators' job is to provide the best education possible for our kids. I cannot be more proud of our educators and our administrators, because basically everything that we have asked them to do goes against what solid, effective instructional strategies are. We have worked to make sure that we are following standards, that we are doing group work, that we are working with manipulatives. And with COVID-19, we have to be very careful that we are not cross-contaminating and making contacts by kids working together. And so very quickly, they've had to change all of that. Just to kind of go back, if we think back to where we were in the spring, March 13th was our day that we all go back to what in the world we do in March 13th. From March 13th until April 15th, our focus truly was on getting kids back into school and, unfortunately, looking at TCAP testing. The week before the governor made the recommendation to shut down schools on April 15th, we actually received TCAP boxes to test the week of April 8th. And so that was still the intention, was for us to be back in school. From April 15th, when that recommendation was made, until May 27th, that was us finalizing the school year, getting kids devices, kids coming in a very small number of students at a time, usually 5 or 10 per day at a school, and at some of our big schools, that takes a while to get their materials, because there was no time on March 13th when they went home. During this time, we had meetings with our principals 3 times a week to discuss updates, plan for the unknown, and really our July 9th decision to open traditional with distance learning option. That was kind of when that decision was looked at. We then had, of course, cases increasing up until July 28th, when that final decision was to leave things kind of as they were. When we look at our distance learning registration, that increased from approximately 19% of what we anticipated to, as of today, we're at 44.13% of our enrollment. In a district as big as ours, you're looking at over 10,000 extra kids that we did not anticipate in a month earlier doing traditional. So why does that really matter? And this is something just being fully transparent. Our school schedules, we start setting those in November and December the year before. We also are a government entity, and so we are working with funding. Our budgets, our principals start working in those in December, January. We work on ours as the departments in January and February to be able to present to you in March and April, so that it then can go before budget, health and ed, and the county commission. We would love to be able to hire distance learning teachers for every one of our kids, and so that we could just say, here's your distance learning teacher. The reality is we have 10 growth positions this school year, 10. Just to put that into perspective, Christiana Elementary School and Buchanan Elementary School, they were the first 2 schools that submitted their numbers today. They had 189 and 128. That's 317 distance learners. That would have put our 10 positions, would not have even covered those 2 schools, distance learning wise. So that's kind of where we are staffing wise of looking at that. Why I say that I'm very proud of our teachers, if we go back to when we made the decision for traditional with distance learning option final on July 28th, they started on August 3rd. And so they then had 5 days to kind of prepare for where we are. We then had 8 work days to where they learned about teaching during a pandemic, the New Year stress, distance versus traditional, and unfortunate time of now we have a new ELA adoption for English language arts that just timing-wise, they also had to learn that. And all of these aren't excuses. These are just the reality of what our teachers have been thrown to. I mean, truly, they have worked tirelessly to try to make the best of the situation we're in. To kind of summarize the CARES Act, so the question that we always get, where are we with mobile devices? And so for mobile devices, the way we work, we actually, as the board is very well aware, we go into our ending fund balance every single year to operate as a district. We wait until May and June to see how much true funds with technology do we have that we can, yes, still go into ending fund balance, but be able to purchase computers. We are a 2-to-1 district. We are not a 1-to-1 district. As part of that blended learning rollout, we are actually further ahead than we had planned to be. We had started in middle schools 2 years ago, high schools last year, and elementary school was supposed to be this year. We actually got to 4th and 5th grade at the end of last year, so we're ahead of where we planned, which still is not enough devices. Looking at devices, we went ahead and ordered some in May and June. Those devices have yet, I don't think we got a report back today, did we? They were supposed to be here August 18th. They're still not here. The devices that we ordered in June, we actually have to, of course, be careful of July 1st. Those devices are now scheduled to be delivered anytime between January 2021 and February 2021. We've talked about that for a couple months. We put a new order in today. Those will now be here for ESL in February of 2021. We've reached out to Lenovo, CWG, every vendor that we know that's on a state contract, and they're very much all in that same boat. That's not a great answer, but that's saying if we had devices, we would get devices. We still have several that we can pull from our schools, which have been very gracious in helping, but every request that we know of for a device has been fulfilled at this time. Then we get to the digital platform. Mr. Spurlock mentioned kind of our first choice. We would be using Kidem K5 regardless. That was part of our ELA adoption. We looked at Canvas. Canvas, when we met with them in April, was 6 to 9 months. So the very earliest we could have had them was October, and that was to even begin discussing training with our teacher. We would have looked at probably January 2nd semester, and the only thing we would have had would have been a website to publish information for, which in looking at student privacy, kind of summarize some things with a Zoom meeting. I know you hear about Zoom. If we put a Zoom link on our website, that is active for anybody to be able to attend by typing their name in. So that wasn't a website, an option for us to look at. Kind of last things to look at, scheduling. We are, of course, looking at doing distance learning teachers. Our schools have adapted very quickly. Elementary and middle have been a little bit more successful. High school is more challenging when you look at schedules. Why can't we just have a district-wide approach to let's make a distance learning teacher everywhere? It truly comes down to the staffing at each school. We are funded BEP-wise based on the student enrollment at that school, and that's how they're assigned staff members. I'll give Homeward Pittard Campus School for a perfect example. They have 239 students today. They have 40 distance learners. They only have 2 teachers per grade level. They cannot assign a distance learning teacher per grade level, or they would go over their class size maximum. And so there are a lot of logistical things that have to go into place in order for a school to be able to assign a distance learning teacher. They have adjusted quickly, and many of them are going that route. Even our high schools are looking at how can we take a course that everybody takes, like English 1, for example, and make a distance learning teacher out of English 1, and then have our other students in person go to more of a combined classroom. Your problem then is you are probably putting between 20 and 35 kids together in a classroom, which goes against contact tracing. All that to say there is no perfect answer there. We are working through those. And I assure you that we are dedicated and understand the concerns. But I'm very proud of, if you think of where we were August 17th to where we are today on, I believe it's September 2nd, they start to run together, how quickly our teachers have truly responded. If you were to go and ask any corporation and industry that works with 56,000 people on a daily basis, change how you're operating your training once your students actually got there in 16 days, and you don't work with just products you make, you work with actual live human beings, it's amazing what educators truly can do. So,
thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I agree with you totally. I think the administrators and the teachers both have learned and picked up and did a credible job and continue to do that. One of the things we have to do, though, in order to problem solve, we have to get feedback, and that's what we always appreciate. My next thing before I turn it over to Mr. Beaudry is I know we have 2 new board members, and we appreciate you guys coming on board. We would like, if the chairman was up to this, have a retreat on a Saturday here at the board office where every one of the departments come in and report on what their program is about. That would include our budget and finance, our instructional department, our transportation department, our career and technical education, you name it, everything, title, everything about every facet of the school system and how that works. I would like if the board would entertain that thought of having that meeting here and kind of having an orientation where the people who are over their departments come in and present.
I'm definitely in favor of that. Do we have a date that would be?
I'd say, I'd say the board chair, you want to look at it, and you guys look at it and see what works for each one of the board members, and we'll set this thing up. We're ready to go when you guys are ready to go.
Okay. Well, we'll get an email out to the board members to see what dates work, and we'll report back to Ms. Hopkins and let her know.
Our last thing for me is very important. I left the most important to last. We've got board members that are new. We have 3 major budgets that we deal with. The 141 is our general purpose school fund. That's pretty, everyone understands that part. We get funded by the state, we get funded by local. Then we have our 177, which is funded locally from our taxpayers. The next one is a unique one, the 143, and it's very important. In fact, it's got a budget over $20 million, does it not? And I know Mr. Beaudry sent this out and had to provide it, and it looks like a lot, but Mr. Beaudry is good at cutting to the chase.
Sir.
So, Mr. Beaudry, if you kind of give us kind of an overview where we are and where we need to be.
Yes, sir. You have in front of you a printout, and there's some supporting documents, but I compressed this onto one page just to give you a summary and update on our cafeteria operations. Just because I know there's 2 new board members, like Mr. Product said, I'm going to give you a very brief overview. And once again, I'll be around if you have a question. I'll be more than happy to answer questions for you later. Just the overview of the centralized cafeteria fund, as it says right there, that is it's different, it's unique from the other funds that we have because it does not have a property tax levy on it. It does not receive local taxes. What the revenue, if you look on the second page, it shows the actual original budget for this cafeteria fund. And if you look at the first section up top, there's our revenues that fund the operations of the cafeteria, of our cafeterias throughout the county. As you can see, the funding for this fund comes from meals served. For the most part, there's a little bit of investment earning, but for the most part, it's driven by meals served. And below that, you see all the costs that are associated with keeping our cafeterias running, down to a bottom line in that second column for 2021 of total budgeted expenditures of $21,357,266. Now, we budget conservatively, and we budgeted that there was going to be a loss in this fund. Historically, we will come through the fiscal year with a small surplus, which of course we sink back into this fund to, one, support our employees, two, buy equipment and additional upgrades for our cafeterias. Okay, we also, there's another item of this that if there's federal guidelines that forbids our school cafeteria fund balance to be greater than 3 months average operating expenditures for a given school year. We comply with that federal mandate, and therefore when we entered into this COVID-19 epidemic in the spring, we did not have a large fund balance to fall back on in this fund. So we had a perfect storm of, we had a school system shut down, we had employees on the payroll, and we had a small fund balance as compliance with federal mandate. Now we'll move forward from there. During the spring and summer of 2020, once the school systems closed down this spring, Rutherford County Schools obtained a waiver from the USDA to provide curbside pickup of meals for our students. We would receive reimbursement from the USDA for each of these meals served. We had 26 sites that were situated throughout the school system, the county, operating from our schools. And during the remainder of the school year, we continued with that emergency feeding, and we served over 250,000 meals to our students during that time. We received reimbursement for those meals, bringing in close to $750,000 in revenue from that. That helped provide for some of the funding of this fund, but as you can see, the size of this fund, we had a sizable loss during the spring until we ended the school year. Going forward, the next section, our cafeteria situation currently, obviously we opened up our cafeterias with our schools this fall to serve our students. As Dr. Sullivan said, we have a large number of distance learners. They can, and we have a procedure that if a distant learner wants to come to the school and get a lunch, they can do that on the curbside. We have not had that much participation yet with that. We hope to see that increase. But due to the large number of distance learners, along with the additional health measures that are being put in place in the cafeterias, some of the schools serve sack lunches, they limit the a la carte sales. Because of that, we've seen a dramatic drop in the revenue since school has began in this fund. And for the new board members, I'm sure the repeat board members remember, we spoke at length about this during the budget time in the spring, and that if we opened up traditionally, we would be okay. But once again, there was not the anticipation of this many distance learners. I did make plans, of course, for in case that happened. We have, I just want to bring your attention to this staffing for public school cafeterias. It's mainly, you drive your labor based on a calculation called meals per labor hour. National industry guidelines for meals per labor hour for staffing purposes is 14 to 20 meals per labor hour served for each cafeteria employees, meaning you want to see that many meals served per employee in a labor hour, and once you get above that, you would consider hiring another employee. But those national standards, that would say once you go below 14 meals per labor hour served, you would consider reducing staff. Currently, we're averaging a meal per labor hour of 6 right now. Okay, so what measures has management taken so far this fall? Among other measures, we enacted a hiring freeze in the cafeteria operations. It was initiated immediately after we saw the number of distance learners. Spending continues to be limited only to necessary items to continue basic operations. We notified the school board and the county commission in July, and that both approved a transfer of funds of $1.5 million from the general purpose school fund to the cafeteria fund to support our ongoing school operations for the cafeteria. Our cafeteria employees have been very flexible, and so have our principals, with allowing us to transfer employees from school to school, because not only is there additional issues with the health guidelines, but as we have had employees that have had to quarantine, that includes cafeteria employees, we have had staffing move to fill in those holes. Management has applied for and received what's called a federal seamless summer option, an SSO waiver, to allow all students, regardless of income, to eat regular meals at no price. This program went into effect yesterday for the first day. I've already seen dramatic increases in the student participation with our meals, which is very good as the USDA revenue will come in. Now keep in mind, that funding for these meals that are going on right now, we won't see that till probably middle of October, okay? And also it throws in another item is, but since everyone eats free, unless they are buying a la carte, we won't see cash receipts until later in October when the USDA funding starts really rolling in. I want to if you flip back to 2 pages on this, so I can give you where we're at cash-wise right now. And what I'm looking at is the pages. The Fund 143, Centralized Cafeteria Fund, it's got a cash flow estimate for month of September 2020. What you see at that 9/1/2020, that is the spendable fund or cash balance that we have starting September 1. That $2.5 million, that includes the $1.5 million transfer that was approved by the school board and the commission in July. You see the estimated receipts for September of 2020. That, for the most part, that's some USDA reimbursement for what happened in August. And then the receipts from sales, meal sales from August that will hit the bank here in just a few days. You see then the estimated disbursements for September 2020, which is reduced from what it was last September. But you can see there's still a sizable at $1.9 million of disbursements. That would leave us with an estimated ending spendable cash balance at September 30th of under $1 million. Keep in mind, we're not going to see that first large payment from USDA for the Seamless Summer program that we just adopted yesterday until the middle of October. So going forward, the planned solution and once again, I don't need a vote from anybody, I just want to make you aware this is what we're going to do, plan forward. The SSO waiver should generate a substantial revenue stream like this spring's emergency feeding program. However, it'll be towards the end of October when these funds are received by the county. So right now, I'm very interested in the cash flow, our cash balances. We will request from the county commission what is called an advance of funds, which would be another $1.5 million from the general purpose school fund to the cafeteria. However, this would be reimbursed once the revenue comes in and we see more cash flow later in the next few months. That will be paid back. So that's not another transfer. It's just, permanent transfer. It will just be a cash advance as our revenue comes in. We'll also be transferring, because of as we can with being less meals served, we will also transfer some of our cafeteria staff to the general purpose school fund to work as what we have created. Dr. Anthony and I and Mr. Lee and Dr. Stone, we all work together to create two more classifications of employees. One's called an emergency classroom facilitator, an emergency COVID custodian, and you can have the job descriptions for these two new job classifications are on the back of your packet. What these folks will do is they will come over and assist our teachers in the classroom when we have a teacher that is out and we cannot fill it with a substitute from Advantage XP or contractor. Instead of that classroom going without someone in there to assist with teaching the children, this person would serve as an unlicensed substitute, just like what we would receive from our contractor. The other classification would be someone who would be a COVID-19 emergency custodian. The job description shows they would do a lot of the cleaning, that is the additional cleaning that's needed because of the pandemic, helping to empty trash cans, just light cleaning. They will not be touching the heavy equipment because we don't want worker comp claims. We want, help, not injuries. This will allow us to keep these individuals, and then once this pandemic lifts, we can now have our trained staff. We don't want to lay people off. We want to have our staff there, help in other areas that's needed right now, and then bring them back once we get to the other side of this. Also, because I'm coding this to these different classifications for COVID relief, that the salaries that we would be paying these former cafeteria employees in the general purpose school fund, they would be eligible for reimbursement from FEMA because they're doing tasks that is deemed necessary to the epidemic. The last thing is one thing that this pandemic has demonstrated. It is the great need for the RCS school nutrition program to have centralized personnel management similar to every other county school nutrition program in Middle Tennessee. Currently, the personnel management is decentralized. Every principal is responsible for hiring, firing, everything of that cafeteria. That's always been that.
It's only in the elementary.
Yes, sir.
No middle or high school won't go near that. They don't hire them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Elementary. Right. We need to be consistent across.
Yes, each cafeteria manager is doing that. So what this would do, and this is something I'd ask the board to seriously consider for next meeting, is to look at us doing just the same as every other county school system in Middle Tennessee, and that would be, we would have the nutrition department that would be directly overseeing the nutrition department or the cafeterias in each of the schools. And that's all I have.
Mr. Bowdre, you've worked very hard on this, and I appreciate all that hard work you've done. And we're not unique, are we? I mean,
no.
Give me an outline of some of our surrounding school systems.
Dixon County, they have already laid off some substantial layoffs in their cafeteria funds. Then we have Williamson County next door to us. They have had transfers as well from their general purpose school fund to their cafeteria fund, similar to what we've done. Marshall County, they've already transferred an equivalent of 7 cents on their property tax levy just to support their cafeteria fund, and had layoffs, along with Coffee County the same way. Numerous counties that complied with that federal maximum fund balance policy like we did. Now, not everybody has done that. So those are the ones that, they're sitting on a lot of money, but we comply with federal mandates. And so my point is there's a lot of people in the same boat as us. They've had to do some layoffs. We have not to date. And we're trying our best to keep our people together.
Thank you, Mr. Bowdre. That's what we need to do, is try to do everything we can to keep our people employed. We don't want to lose them, have to go out here and replace them. So it's admirable that you've done what you've done there. Moving on, TLN, do we have anything, Ms. Johnson, to report?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Federal Relations, Ms. Sharp?
Nothing today.
Okay.
Before we get in general discussion, there was one additional visitor we had tonight. And the board is so inclined, we could take her up now. Her name is Leah Maitland. So she would have 3 minutes.
Sure.
Thank you all. I'm not sure how my email went astray or how I didn't get on the list, so I appreciate the indulgence. My name is Leah Maitland, and I live at 5810 Napa Valley Drive in Smyrna. I'm part of an online parents group for distance learning support in both city and county schools. The group is nearly 2,000 members strong. Yesterday, a parent in the group worked to gather feedback from many parents to help understand how distance learning is going for the families and students of our district. I collaborated with that parent who was unable to attend tonight's meeting in order to share some thoughts that we took away from the feedback we received. We clearly have some phenomenal schools that have taken the distance learning challenge and run with it. While the first days may have been rocky due to technical issues, these several schools have earned rock star reputations with the parents and the students who attend them. Colleen Melchiori, who spoke earlier, sent you a list of some of the schools where we got really positive feedback, and I'll refer you to that. We come to you tonight with a special request. We ask the board that you work with these top performing schools to create guidelines and plans district-wide, which will help ensure a high-quality, uniform educational experience for all students. Perhaps mentoring relationships between a top-performing school and a school that's struggling to implement distance learning. We recognize that every school is laboring mightily to rise to the challenges presented by this year, and it is our hope that sharing best practices and setting uniform expectations will in the end lighten the load for everyone: schools, teachers, parents, and our students. This request is submitted in the spirit of furthering the education of all Rutherford County students. We passionately want to see our schools set on a path for success. We'd also like the school board to view distance learning as a flexible, long-term tool in our public education toolbox. This pandemic has forced many technological developments that can be used to address other future learning interruptions. With distance learning, we might not need to close schools for the flu or strep. If we have an extended weather event like ice, teachers could still provide virtual educational opportunities. And so we see this as a long-term opportunity for us to provide a better education to all our kids. It is our hope that Rutherford County could be a leader in our state and the nation, showcasing the positive achievements that so many devoted educators have accomplished in a short amount of time. Distance learning kids are helping keep social distancing possible in the schools. All we are asking for is equal implementation of distance learning across the district. We want to be part of the solution. There are parents who would be happy to be a part of focus groups, parents with tech skills. We are here, we are ready to be a part of the solution, and I thank you for your time and devotion to our students, schools, and the families of Rutherford County.
Can you send me your email?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right, general discussion.
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Short.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna, did you say we had 24% distance learning? Did I understand you say?
44, we're close to 44%.
44, okay.
44.
That was wrong. And what's our current enrollment?
We're about 46,000, are you talking about overall?
Overall.
46,000?
46,411, which is up from this time last year, 45,612. Which you have to keep in mind, this does not include pre-K. So pre-K increases our number quite a bit. These are only K-12 students. Right?
And we typically pick up about another 700 along the way. One of the things that I've seen with the enrollment numbers is it's lower in the elementary, especially in the early elementary.
We are down 254 students in kindergarten, which is to be expected during a year of uncertainty. Parents have that option because of their birthday to hold them out for school for another year. So it's about 254 kids, not including your normal 3 to 5% growth that are lower in kindergarten compared to normal years.
The only problem with that is what's coming next, which is some double whammy with growth.
Mr. Lee?
I don't want to take too much time tonight, but I feel like based on Mr. Harris's comments that he made earlier tonight that I owe you and the public an answer, especially when he disparaged the school board and myself personally. I have spoken to Mr. Harris numerous times. A lot of Mr. Harris's disgruntledness comes from the fact of the road that's being built on Sledge Road. I have kept Mr. Reed abreast of basically all of my conversations with not only Mr. Harris, but Mr. Kilgore, who is the owner of what's left of the Tan Oaks properties. So I will address his 3 points very quickly. Mr. Harris is fairly accurate when he said that I did discuss with him the alignment of the road and that we would put as much on our side as we possibly could. And I've said that in front of this board before. Mr. Reed is aware. We've met with the highway department, all the local utilities. This has been a major undertaking. We have additional easements that are associated with the remaining Tan Oaks property along Sledge Road. And when this process started, I met with Mr. Brooks and requested that all alignment that he needed to take for any correction of Sledge Road be done on our side because of these easements. The highway department, to my knowledge, their engineers worked with our engineers. We basically said, y'all get your alignment and we'll work it from there for our part. So we have no interaction with Mr. Harris at all. It's strictly the highway department. Now, I'm not privy to all of their information, but the short version is the highway department is constrained by a box culvert that goes under, that takes part of this bridge and the curve at our road. If you look at the map, it's kind of an S curve. So they're constrained by some geometry and different things. So they could only do so much moving, but they, to my knowledge, they moved the road as much as they could over onto our property. So there, and he's correct, there is a little bit of slope easement that was required. They couldn't get it all on us. They did the best they could. And I apologized to Mr. Harris, and I told him that basically what I told him was we would make available our property and any easements to give the highway department everything they needed. And I assure you that was done. So the first statement that he made about myself being untruthful, that we didn't do it, we did what we said we would do. And we did, and that's out of our control. The second thing he brought up was the access for the tenant that lives on the remaining property. Ms. Johnson has called and talked to me about this on 2 separate occasions. The short version of this story is when we purchased this property, the seller did not request a permanent easement for any roadways, anything like that. The driveway for the tenant's property does cross our property. However, there is a large section of remaining road frontage on Sledge Road that could be used as a new access point for a driveway. I met in November with Mr. Kilgore, who's the property owner. I apologize for not knowing the gentleman's last name, Dwayne, who lives in the house, to see what we could do about this situation, because we knew there was no provisions made for any kind of temporary or permanent easement access to get across what is now our property. Mr. Kilgore's comments that day were very plain. He wasn't paying for anything, and that if Mr. Dwayne couldn't get a new driveway on his own, he wasn't going to take care of it. He wasn't paying anything. There was also the issue of Middle Tennessee Electric. It went up the driveway. They had no easement there. I assured Mr. Kilgore that we would work with Middle Tennessee Electric not to get the power cut off. And we did. The power line got relocated. We worked out some easements, gave them some access along our property that we weren't going to be building in, left it available for Middle Tennessee Electric, got all of that relocated back in the spring at no cost to anybody. We found out recently that the water line that goes from the pump or the CUD connection on the road to the house actually went across our property. I called Mr. Reed. I met again with Mr. Kilgore in July with Dwayne and my project manager, Dylan Potter. We discussed the driveway and the water line. Mr. Kilgore reiterated on 2 separate occasions, Dwayne, I'm not paying for anything, and if you can't figure out what to do, you can do whatever. I told the gentleman until he could figure out what he could do for a driveway, he could drive across our property. And he still can to this day. What I said was, and I was very clear and Mr. Kilgore completely understood it, we were not building nor participating in paying for a new driveway for the property. Until we got complete, I offered the gentleman to be able to drive across our property. Now, it's a construction site. That property's all dirt. What's it going to do when it rains? It's going to become very muddy. Now, that's not very practical all of the time, but I attempted to be a good neighbor. All of these conversations, upon completion, were transmitted with Mr. Reed. He's been involved in all of this all along to make sure that I was not stepping out of bounds as far as what we could do as a governmental agency or a property owner, trying to be accommodating to this gentleman. He's come to the conclusion with the recent rains, he can't build a driveway. And I'm sorry for that. But his landowner is not interested in expending any money or participating in helping him do that. We, at our own cost, relocated his water line so that he would not lose water service. We did that at no cost to him, just like we did the electric department. But I felt like that was the end of our responsibility. Tried to be a good neighbor, didn't want to be in the paper, but we've done everything we said we would do. Number 3, he mentioned the wetlands and that everybody knew there was wetlands and all that. On August 12th, Mr. Harris sent all the school board members an email. And it had a document about us being shut down and TDEC and all of that. We submitted our NOI, which is a notice of intent, goes to TDEC in June. That was based on our original design that went out for bid for the 3-school site. When we submitted that, TDEC came back to us and said, whoa guys, there's some wetlands on here that y'all haven't addressed. That stopped the process. We then got with TDEC to work with our consultants to find out where these wetlands are, which they are now identified. We have them protected so that there's no construction going on in that area, because we don't want to get off there. He sent the email, and in that email are 3 documents. One of those documents is a calculation for how many acres of wetlands that shows on that property. What Mr. Harris has shown you and submitted to you is the 100-year floodplain. And those drawings are accurate for the 100-year floodplain. And the area that he's highlighted in 2 opposite corners total about 9 acres. Well, I'm here to tell you, and I'll send you the drawing in the morning if you want it. The wetlands that we are dealing with are nowhere near these 2 pieces that he's identified. They are both completely out of the 100-year floodplain. They have absolutely nothing to do with that. Based on that fact, we've had to redesign our drawings. We reduced our notice of coverage, or our NOI, from 150 acres, which was our original site plan, down to 50. Now, that's going to get amended again later, once we address the wetlands. We amended it to 40 acres, which is nothing but the road, the elementary site, and the road going over to Hoover's Gap. Why did we do that? It's so that we could get a NOC separate and apart from the wetlands and get the elementary school started to have any chance of being ready in 2021. On the 6th of August, we received our notice of coverage from TDEC for those 47 acres for that property. It took us about a week and a half to get mobilized, to begin to put up silt fence and all these things, erosion control, all these things that we have to do to get started. That was done. I will admit, one part he is 100% correct on. There was 600 feet of erosion control that was left out. Now, that's not the only low part on this property, but it was a significant part. Readily admit it, we've been in contact with TDEC and Rutherford County Stormwater Department. We have worked feverishly with them for the last 3 days. As of yesterday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, we are 100% compliant. We have provided photographs. We have provided everything that they've asked us to do. And this is TDEC in the Rutherford County. I apologize for that 600 feet. That falls under my oversight. Whether it was on the drawings or not on the drawings, or whether the contractor did it or not, it's my responsibility, and I take responsibility for it. But I also take responsibility for getting it fixed and shutting the contractor down till it was taken care of, and both agencies, as of this morning, are satisfied. Now, I say all that to say that's the piece that was missing, and I felt like Rutherford County School System and my department was put in a bad light, and we've been nothing but honest and straightforward with Mr. Harris, Mr. Reed, and you folks, and I didn't think it needed to be left that way, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Any other questions, discussions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, something I'd like to talk about, general discussion. Mr. Lee, you were finished, correct? Yes. And one of our visitors touched on it earlier, and I just have been terribly concerned, and he mentioned, of course, this letter that went out to these parents with the caveat in it about privacy concerns with them watching online lessons. And Mr. Spurlock, I thank you for answering the questions that I asked earlier, but as our visitor mentioned, and I know none of us likes bad press, and this bad press has grown monstrous. It's been all over the national news. We're kind of being hung out there about this, and of course, not knowing anything about this letter until actually somebody forwarded it to me on social media asking me what I knew about it. I think it does beg some questions that I'd like to try to get answered. First of all, I guess my first question, Ms. Spurlock, I don't know if these questions are for you or if you want to ask a staff member to answer. My first question is, are we still using, I know we modified it, but are we still putting this letter out asking distance learner parents to sign off on it?
We have modified it. And Ms. Page, you want to mention what we put on there?
Yes, the form has been modified to include that parents can absolutely be involved. If I could, I'd like to take a second and apologize for the letter. It was something that left my office. It has many iterations, and the iteration that left my office was not the proper form. I am horrified that it has caused so much distress for our families and for our parents, and the attention is brought to this school system. But I hope you know that the intention always from the very beginning was to protect our most vulnerable students. And unfortunately, we are working really hard with our parents on and our teachers rather, and parents on how to use Zoom. We've had quite a few incidents over the last few weeks that have been problematic with parents' involvement on Zoom. But that is not to say that all of our parents should have been subjected to a ban. The form that is currently available for teachers to use or principals to use if they need some sort of reassurance does expressly in 3 to 4 different places say that parents can absolutely be involved, and as long as they follow the teacher's instructions, I think that's essential. We've seen unfortunate incidences of what happens if a parent doesn't choose to follow normal etiquette protocol when we have students listening in. I do want to add about this form, though. The original intent of my very first draft, which is unfortunately the one that was produced out, was to follow a procedure we have in place for in-person learning. I think that goes to speak to my own personal flaw. I'm an attorney, so I wrote a letter that was intended absolutely to protect our students who may have a visible disability that would be obvious to someone who really didn't need to see that. Our students, they're lovely beings. I've gotten to get to know students in an intimate way, but they are spontaneous creatures who often share sometimes dark situations, maybe at home or something, really without prompting, or maybe as an unexpected response to a question. And admittedly, my office does tend to see some of the darker situations that we need to deal with as a school system. So the original intent of the letter was to follow our procedure at the time, which expressly disallows observations by parents in the classroom or of any instructional setting unless they have a memorandum of understanding or some previous agreement with the district. That was the original intent. That was quickly, when I shared it with some of our instructional leads who had that educator mindset, they did point out to me that parents in this situation, especially for our young kids and our students with disabilities, are likely going to need assistance. And so I created multiple other drafts of the letter that included different caveats for parent involvement. It was my error when I was asked to resend the letter that I sent a draft that did not include that language. There is no excuse for that. My job is to be thorough, and I knew it was going to be a district-wide distribution, and I did not realize at the moment that it wasn't the right form. So we corrected that form with a version that actually had gone out previously in the summer that allowed parent involvement, and that was all corrected before the media actually picked up on the letter. Mr. Spurlock received some complaints from parents and was very quick to call me and point out that this is not tenable for families. And we quickly that day changed it and put it out to all principals. There was also a directive that if any parent had signed the old form, that they needed to be notified by the principal, that hard language that really was prohibitive if you're a parent who wanted to do the right thing, that you would feel like you really couldn't be there, that does not apply, and that we know that you're a partner in this distance learning situation. As we've seen, it has been more necessary than ever to include our parents in the classroom. And so that was put out on August 13th. Unfortunately, as we know, the ball was already rolling. There was no bringing it back. There was no amount of apologizing or an explanation. I think that was going to solve that issue in a media sense. I do want to say that at no point was the intent ever to mean that parents could not see what was happening in our classroom. To be completely honest, from a legal perspective, I knew that ultimately that form was unenforceable. Our parents were 100% going to be in their homes with their children. They were 100% going to hear lessons. The intent of my form was to say if something, goodness forbid, someone chose to be nefarious and film a student who was maybe having an episode related to a disability and uploaded it, something like that, that parents understood that we would do our best to control who was watching those films, but we could not prevent them from watching and filming and abusing that access to their children. So that was 100% the intent, but I know that that intent's been lost. And we have been, if parents have refused to sign the form, I've been asked by principals, what do? I tell them, go forward. At the end of the day, FERPA and most of the privacy concerns, the general things we see every day, they are already in our directory information policy. Likeness, names, things like that are actually already available to the public if requested. We still tend to protect it as much as we can, but it's actually already waived in our directory information procedure that the parents sign off that in the handbook. So I've told principals going forward, do not require it. If a parent is still comfortable and resubmits it because you've already sent it to them, that's fine, but let those students participate fully. And if a parent does have a particular concern about their student being filmed or recorded, to please respect that just like we do in the classroom. So it is, as much as I can apologize, I hope you all know that I strive every day to learn the educator side of this job, and I think this was a misstep on my part of not relaying the legal side with the practical, and an unfortunate accident of a bad draft going out. So if I can do anything, or if you have parents who would like to even speak to me, I'm always here and available. I tried my very best to assuage any concerns that came to me from any parent. So I appreciate everyone's kindness and understanding on this, and I promise that the products that come out of the legal office will be better vetted in the future before they leave to a mass disbursement to our parents.
Ms. Page, we're going to keep you around a little bit longer, okay? Don't worry.
I just bought a house, so I appreciate that very much.
And I'm very, very sorry that you were put on the spot with this, and I certainly understood all along that there was no nefarious intent, but as we all know, it morphed into something much, much greater, as it so often does when it hits the media. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding that, because I do have parents asking me this. We're not forcing it on or requiring any parents to still sign off on it.
No,
or not.
that's right. If they don't want to sign the distance learning, that is absolutely acceptable. The only one I do ask them to consider is the in-person, if their students in-person, because if they don't want to be on camera, if we want to do maybe a wider Zoom angle, include the students, we want to know that they don't want that. So if they have a concern that's really more about their right, that's what we still want to hear. If parents have a concern that they have, we're here for that. But as far as what we're going to be dictating, no, that is no longer required.
And I want to add to some of the most vile, threatening phone calls. Today, this morning, I received a message from a director of school superintendent in Murfreesboro, Arkansas, with a voicemail threatening to do bodily harm with people. Now, look, I understand being upset about a mistake on a form. I do not understand the threats. That's not going to be tolerated. We're not going to put up with it, and we're not going to take it. You know, I'm taken back. They tracked it to a track phone in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, some of the things that were said on there were very, very concerning. I kind of jokingly talked to Ms. Page about it. It didn't bother me any, other than the fact I think that the person whoever sent it needs to probably check into a hospital soon. But that's got to stop. The letters, the phone calls, the emails from whether it's from Ohio, wherever. I want to read quickly an email I got for a commissioner pertaining to the same subject. It said, Mr. Spurlock, I have a grandson at Rockville starting kindergarten and participating in distance learning. We are well pleased. When the debacle began on the questionable form, my daughter was out there telling her friends she had no problems and totally understood the need plus the importance of supporting our teachers. We've been amazed but not surprised from the reaction of others over this form. The discussion and reactions have been reached as far as Arkansas and Missouri, where I had business friends step into the debate where they had no dog in the fight. Finally, this morning, I had to let one close friend in Arkansas know my feelings, and I attached him so you can read the results of a commissioner being pushed too far. I do respect you, your staff, and teachers for what you do, especially during this time when every day is different. Challenge. Please keep on keeping on. I appreciate that. That was a mistake. People make mistakes. It's easy to pick up a phone, call whomever is the person that sent it out. They call me, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to go to Ms. Page. I think I did that, Ms. Page, and actually we talked about that. But let's please have some common decency. Let's lower the temperature somewhat with the threats. Now, like I said, I understand it comes with the territory. However, when they're threatening our staff, that's kind of a little disconcerting on my part. So please, if you have an issue with something, just simply contact us and we will make it right.
Mr. Spurlock, I appreciate that because I will share that I, better than anybody at this point after this past election cycle, can relate better than anybody to anonymous threatening letters and the same with social media posts. So I agree with you completely. Ms. Page, again, my apology for having put you on the spot. I guess my concern moving forward is that, and Mr. Reed, maybe you can speak to this, I think what went out almost kind of seemed like it was a policy, and I'm always concerned with when we roll something like that out, the concern of are we managing it consistently? So the fact that it's off the table now, it perhaps
is moved, but I think moving forward it would be a good idea that something like this probably needs to be looked at by the board before it went out. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Page.
Any other discussion?
Bear me, I'm new here, but I was just curious. It's obvious we've got a lot on our plate, and I first want to say I am humbled and honored to serve on this board with you all, and it's been an exciting week. I got to go visit 2 schools today, and so I hit the ground rolling. But I was wanting to know, it's obvious we've got so much on our plate, and there's so much that's coming at us, some things we can anticipate, some things we can't. I really feel like, and this came up during the campaign, that we need to possibly look back to going to our old policy of 2 meetings and 2 board sessions a month. I feel like we've just got so much that's coming at us that we need to be doing the people's work, and I think that we need to keep those meetings. And though well-intended, I think there's just too much going on, especially in the middle of this pandemic, to hold to 1 meeting a month. And I was just curious to see if we could look into going back to the old policy.
We do have, 2 meetings scheduled for this month already?
We do this month.
Ms. Maxwell, thank you for that, and welcome, by the way. Kind of elaborate on that. I do think in retrospect, looking back on this, because I know for me personally, the work sessions, especially when we have a lengthy agenda like we do, I thought were always valuable, and I think they would be extremely valuable to our new board members. So I do agree that that's something, not necessarily maybe multiple meetings, I think just depending on how much we have or need for the agenda that month, but I think certainly going back to having work sessions for at least the time being.
Mr. Chairman, welcome, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Maxwell and Ms. Breton. One of the things that I find to be very useful as a board member, and I'm sure that you know this as well, contacting the staff I go through Mr. Spurlock's office, and they are very responsive. Mr. Lee noted earlier that he and I had several conversations about the issue out at Tan Oaks. So sometimes people don't want to reach out, but I would encourage you to reach out. In fact, that's helped me when we don't have work sessions. I would say it's a little bit more beneficial than the work sessions. So I would just encourage both the new board members to reach out to the staff. That's what they're here for, and they're very helpful.
I've got a question if you're not finished. Mr. Reed, will you explain for the audience what we actually set our policy on as far as Robert's rules, so that the gentleman that was earlier this meeting that we went by Robert's rules, will you tell us what we actually go by for our policy?
Well, with respect to visitors, we allow an individual visitor 3 minutes to speak to the board. So, and then that's what we allow for each individual visitor. So that's controlled by the rules of the board and our policies with respect to visitors. So that's not controlled by Robert's Rules of Order. So, and as the board know, there is no provision for someone to come and yield their time to a third party. Because otherwise, if that was the case, you could have someone talking to the board theoretically, forever one night. We also have a rule that says our visitor presentations, just so we manage the meeting and get our business done, should be limited no more than 30 minutes in their entirety for a meeting. So if you added up all the visitors' times together, what our rules are, we can't cut people off and ask them to stop after 30 minutes, and that's not with the intent of not hearing them. That's for the purpose of just being able to manage the meeting and run the meetings. If you had a situation where someone could just yield time to someone else, you could have someone appear and 20 people yield all that time to one individual, which is not really the way the system's set up. So certainly there's nothing, no one should feel like they can't talk to a board member or approach a board member. I think all our board members are really accessible by email and by phone. I know many of you get phone calls at home after hours and get emails at home. And generally, I find you are very responsive and getting back to the constituents pretty quickly with respect to questions. So if there are any concerns that people have with respect to any issues, they should voice those to the board members directly as well. And we do have, but in this meeting session, we have visitors allotted 3 minutes per visitor. So that's the rules we currently have.
Thank you. That's for our audience. So I have one more question for Mr. Spurlock. Where are we on testing waivers?
Now,
I know that's a sore subject, but
the state has said, the state board, they're not going to waive it. I think I did hear something today, and something that the commissioner released, saying that when Shelby County requested the waiver of the testing, she said we test to determine where our children are in terms of achievement or on that scale. And the waiver has more to do, they're separate, is what she was saying. Now, we have in October, I think it's in October, our Holloway will be the first school to test.
End of October, beginning of November.
I don't, and it's just me, okay, I don't see them waiving the assessment, the process. What we should focus on is waiving, holding us harmless from the results. I think if we, I think that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on holding us harmless. We know, and I agree, distance learning is great for some, but not for everyone.
Right.
And the teachers are doing a fabulous job, but let me be honest with you, it's not as good as it could be if we went during this pandemic. And so I hope, some thought goes into this process.
So have we given any thought to those students who are not doing well, distance learning? I mean, we've got some that probably play football or basketball or something like that. If their grades are not to the level where they need to be, have we given any thought to that?
After 9 weeks, remember we talked about after 9 weeks, we'll evaluate all that. One of the things today, I don't know if it was a mess up with the data, but I have to go back and look at it in terms of where we are. Automatically we had like 1,300 people roll off of active cases. That don't sound right to me.
Yeah,
There's got to be a mistake there somewhere.
That's a lot.
I hope so. I'm crossing my fingers. I hope it's right, because that would put us down at 0.156 or something like that.
And Ms. Sharp, kind of to your point, you mentioned the distance learning. One thing we found that our distance learning numbers have increased is we do have a lot of athletes who are worried about being quarantined, and so they are then going to distance learning just so that they don't lose their season. So that is absolutely something that's happening.
And quite frankly, to be honest with you, quarantine is worse than getting the positive test, because
yeah, it is.
If Mr. Young is positive, he can get back in 10 days. Because of the incubation period, I've got to stay, quarantined for 14 days. So it's challenging, to say the least.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion?
Thing with the board. As everybody knows, our fall district meeting was moved and then canceled. And Ms. Hopkins has been gracious enough to reach out to TSBA and confirm with them that if the board would like to meet in the boardroom on the 8th, we can have dinner brought in, or we can do dinner after. But everybody who is here will get credit for it, and she will submit the information. We can watch it on the big screen in the boardroom. So I just want to extend the invitation. I appreciate Ms. Hopkins for doing that for us. I hope that we can all get together, and as a new board, it would be a great opportunity for us to have a team-building exercise, if you will. And then if the new board members have any questions, or existing board members have questions, like I often do, it would be a good opportunity for all of us. So I would invite everybody out to do that, and I thank you for doing that for us.
What's the deadline on needing the feedback as far as who's going to attend that?
I have heard from 3, 4. And I'm still waiting to hear from
We were trying to figure out the email for Ms. Bradley, and I think we trying to get that situated. So we finally got all that information. So I'm just waiting to hear back from that, so that I can let everyone know.
All right, so if y'all please would communicate with Ms. Hopkins, let her know, and we'll go forward. Board, if you would allow me, I would like to recognize our County Commissioner, Wayne Blair. I'd like to invite him up to the podium. He has some comments, a former school board member, vice chair, president of TSBA. I don't know what other credentials you might have.
Well, I feel like I've been home all evening, so just sitting out in the audience. But I've enjoyed being with you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, school board members, Mr. Director, for giving me an opportunity to make an announcement, actually, but also to express my appreciation for you honoring Chairman Hodge and Chairman Jordan this evening. I had the honor and privilege of serving with them and, of course, many of you for a number of years, and I know they always put our students and our RCS employees and our county community first, and they sacrificed family time and otherwise to do the very best job that they could do. And again, it was a real honor for me to have the opportunity to serve not only with this board, but also specifically with these two fine public servants. I knew that if I didn't make this announcement publicly, that it would be difficult to get Chairman Hodge and Chairman Jordan to attend, but on September the 17th, when the normal commission meeting is held at the historic courthouse, we'll also be recognizing Chairman Hodge and Chairman Jordan for their efforts with the county community, and wanted to invite you to attend as we recognize them as your funding body. You know, and that's a lot of fun to say because I sat on the other side of the desk for a long time. So, but I think you all appreciate the effort that they've given over the years. And again, this is another opportunity for us to share our gratitude and appreciation for their effort. I would like to remind everybody that Chairman Hodge was the very first master board member in Rutherford County, and that I believe that included the city school system as well. And Chairman Jordan's claim to fame was that he was my junior high school teacher, and so that dates him just a little bit. So, Mr. Chairman, School Board, Mr. Spurlock, again, thank you, and I hope to see you on September the 17th. Thank you. 6 o'clock. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. All right, if no other discussion, our meeting will be adjourned.